So every year there's a crisis in the NCR region, especially in Delhi, with the rising pollution levels. And this year it's no better. Uh, why is it that our governments have repeatedly failed in solving this crisis?
Pollution has now become some kind of a life for us, especially in Delhi. And we as lawyers, we get a small break, and that is the time when we are able to recharge our lungs. Although Mr. Sanyal doesn't agree to this break, but I'll tell you one thing: more of this pollution is because of lack of will by the state to control pollution. I'll give you a very interesting example. In Singapore, there is a law that any company outside Singapore also, if it by any way, by any activity, increases the AQI level beyond 80, then that company, office bearers, the directors, etc., of that company are liable to be taken to prison in Singapore. Now, this paper mill in Malaysia, the largest paper mill of Malaysia, this managing director is an Indian. So he used to go to Singapore on work regularly, and once he landed and he was arrested. So he was surprised that why has he been arrested. So later on, next day he was told the grounds of arrest. The grounds of arrest were that there was a forest fire in one of his forests owned by the paper mill, and the fire, the wind swept the smoke into Singapore, and the AQI went beyond 80. And that was a ground on which he was arrested, and with great difficulty he was released, and he was told to not come back to Singapore ever when he was finally released. So this is the kind of resolve we require to tackle pollution. When I was trying to give this example before a division bench of the Supreme Court, when I was also arguing for one of the PIL petitioners against this pollution, the judges said, no, Singh Saab, we can't look at Singapore. Now, if that is the attitude, even of the judges, I don't see any, if I remember correctly, this was Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia sitting with Justice Sanjay Kaul who said this. So, the attitude has to change. If the farmers are burning their stock, their parali for the purpose of turnover of their next crop, then, and if it's a punishable offense, then very, very strict action should be taken against them. In our country, unfortunately, we look at farmers only as vote bank. They can do whatever and get away with it. They are killing people of Delhi and they can get away with it. Now, tell me, what is the problem with these farmers? The farmer problem is that in Punjab, there is a law which prohibits the rowing of paddy till the monsoon starts, because the groundwater is going down so rapidly. So the paddy sowing invariably gets a little delayed. Now, before the next crop is to be sown, they have a very little time window in between. So to quickly prepare the field for the next crop, they burn the parali. Now, parali can be easily by machines handled in such a way that the parali actually can be used for renewable energy, and they mindlessly burn this parali. It's a criminal offense. No arrest is happening because the state goes slow on these farmers because they feel ultimately they are a vote bank, and nobody is interested. Similarly, here also in Delhi, all these vehicles which are there on the road, the ones which don't comply with the latest norms, they should not be permitted to be, flying on the streets. And there are codes on vehicles which should indicate what kind of pollution norms this particular vehicle is complying. But those codes are also not implemented properly, with the result that it is almost next to impossible for the traffic police guy to identify which car is a compliant car and which is not a compliant car. Then thirdly, the way construction goes on in the city, the way the public infrastructure is built without those adequate safeguards of watering and dusting and dust suppression, and those scaffolding which is mandatory for any infrastructure work to be done, all that is not being implemented. So with the result that we suffer, and our lives are getting shorter because of this pollution that is there in Delhi. So it's actually the lack of will in the political executive to take these things head on notwithstanding the fact that people of Delhi are suffering and are prone to, even today, if you can see, my voice is not normal, and that is because of the pollution that is in Delhi. So ultimately, this and we are cursed in many ways because of the being a lawyer in the Supreme Court. We have to be in Delhi, so it's a curse for us to be in Delhi to breathe this air compulsorily, and the state is doing nothing. Now, as a taxpayer, I pay a lot of money to the government as tax. I don't get anything in return. I don't want a medical facility. I don't want, social security, but at least give me good roads and give me at least clean air. I mean, that's the basic that I can ask for. That is something which I cannot provide on my own. There is no way I can do it on my own. So the taxpayer money is being used again to get votes by disbursing money at the time of election to every individual who's participating in the election, and then getting votes out of that. And there is nothing being done to ultimately improve the quality of our lives. I think there is a complete lack of will as far as tackling the pollution problem is concerned.
So, very briefly, why is pollution not an electoral issue in India? I mean, cities like London have had this problem in the past, many years, decades ago. Beijing has had this issue. But somehow, here in India, in the north of the country, this toxic air that we're breathing right now, it's not an electoral issue.
So, because in this country, the electoral issue, the larger electoral issue is, roti, kapda, and pani, and livelihood, employment. So, if you compare ourselves with the Western economy, like you said, London, etc., London not today, but London at that point of time, they didn't have this, the basic needs were satisfied. So they could look at the higher needs of survival. Whereas here we are still grappling with the basic needs for survival. And so that is why the basic needs become the electoral issue. The higher needs are only felt by the people, and the ones who really feel it more are the ones who are the who have to live in that area and suffer this pollution, and they really don't matter as far as the vote bank politics is concerned.
Thank you, sir.